It didn't happen overnight. There wasn't a single explosion, no one dramatic moment where everything just stopped. At least not in the way people expected. Because when you look at the story of Kanye West, what you're really looking at is a slow shift, a buildup, a series of moments that kept stacking until one day the world looked at him differently. And that's the part people can't agree on. Because for years, Kanye wasn't just a rapper. He was something bigger, a creative force, a cultural architect, someone who didn't just follow trends, he created them. Music, fashion, business, he moved through it all like he owned it. At his peak, Kanye wasn't just successful, he was untouchable. Albums that changed the sound of an entire generation, sold-out tours, a fashion empire that turned sneakers into status symbols, billion-dollar conversations, the kind of influence most artists never even get close to. And what made it even more powerful was his confidence. Kanye believed in himself before anyone else did. He said it out loud, over and over again. Called himself a genius, compared himself to icons, refused to shrink just to make people comfortable. At first, people laughed. Then they listened. Then they believed. But somewhere along the way, that confidence started to feel different. The same boldness that once looked like vision began to look like unpredictability. The same honesty that made him stand out started to make people uneasy. And this is where the story starts to shift. Because Kanye didn't slowly fade away, he didn't quietly step back. He stayed loud, stayed visible, stayed exactly who he was, maybe even more. Public appearances became harder to predict. Interviews turned into moments people replayed, not always for the right reasons. Social media posts sparked debates that went far beyond music or fashion. And with every moment, the gap between how he saw himself and how the world saw him kept growing. But even then, nothing had really collapsed. Not yet, because Kanye still had something powerful backing him. His empire. Massive partnerships, billion-dollar deals, brands that didn't just support him, but depended on him. His influence wasn't just cultural anymore, it was financial. And that's what made the next part so important. Because when things finally started to break, they didn't break quietly. They broke publicly. Statements were made. Reactions followed. Headlines spread faster than ever. And suddenly, the conversation wasn't about creativity anymore. It was about consequences. Major brands began to distance themselves. Partnerships that once looked unshakable started to fall apart. Deals ended. Collaborations disappeared. The same companies that once amplified his vision were now stepping back, one by one. And just like that, the empire started to crack. Not all at once, but enough for people to notice. Enough for people to ask the question that had been building for a long time. Is this the moment everything changed? Because here's the truth. Kanye didn't lose his talent. He didn't suddenly forget how to create. He didn't lose the ability that made him who he is. What changed was something else. Trust. Public trust. Industry trust, the kind of trust that keeps doors open, that keeps partnerships alive, that allows someone to operate at the highest level without resistance. And once that starts to slip, everything else becomes harder to hold together. But even then, the story isn't as simple as rise and fall, because Kanye has always existed outside of simple narratives. For every person who saw a downfall, there was someone else who saw something different. Someone who believed he was being misunderstood or targeted or simply refusing to conform in a system that doesn't reward difference. And that's what makes this story complicated, because it forces you to look at two realities at the same time. On one side, a man whose words and actions led to real consequences, lost deals, damaged relationships, a shift in how the world responds to him. And on the other side, a man who built something from nothing, who reshaped industries, who refused to be boxed in, even when it cost him. So what was the turning point? Was it a single statement? A specific interview? A moment that went too far? Or was it the accumulation of everything? The pressure, the expectations, the refusal to filter, the constant spotlight. Maybe it wasn't one moment at all. Maybe it was inevitable. Because when someone operates at that level, when they push boundaries as hard as Kanye always has, there's always a risk. A risk that one day the same world that elevated you decides it's had enough. And when that shift happens, it happens fast. Support turns into silence, applause turns into criticism, and suddenly the narrative changes, not slowly, all at once. But here's the part most people don't talk about. Even after everything, Kanye is still here, still creating, still speaking, still finding ways to exist in a space that doesn't fully know what to do with him anymore. Which raises one final question. Did Kanye West lose his empire, or did he simply outgrow the version of it that the world was comfortable with? Because depending on how you see it, this isn't just a story about downfall. It's a story about transformation. And maybe the moment everything changed is still unfolding. So what do you think? Was this the fall of a genius, or just another chapter in a story that's far from over?